Hey, this is Tilak. Welcome back to our fast formula tutorial. Today we are going to see one more eligibility for GSP, eligibility fast formula for GSP. In our previous session, we saw the eligibility at that ladder level. Now we are going to look at that in a grade and step level. We are going to see it in the grade and step in the same fast formula. We are going to write only one fast formula that will work for grade, all the grades and all the steps. Okay. This formula may not work for you in a real case. Okay, so this is only to explain you that the operation behind that the grade and the step eligibility. So I'm trying to give you one formula that will work for all the grade I have it and the step I have it. Okay. When you are coming to the context, it is the same context. There's absolutely no difference. Whether it's a grade, ladder, grade, steps, all the same context supported. Okay. Now, when you are coming to that input values, there are differences. When you are looking at the grade level, you get the ladder ID, ladder name, start date, end date. Start date, end date only comes to the picture when you are having a there's an option you can send start date, end date when you are running the process. Otherwise, and the start date, end date is the effective date. And it also passes you the grade ID, grade name, grade sequence. Okay. Then when you are coming to the return values eligible, that is that mandate from the benefit side, the formula side. Okay. Now, when you are coming to that step level, we have the same ladder ID is there, ladder name is there, start date is there, end date is there, grade ID, grade name, sequence, step ID, step name. Here, what missing is the step sequence is missing. Okay. Now, most of the cases, the step name is and the sequence is the same. Normally, they give a 1, 2, 3, 4. If you don't have it, then you have to work with whatever the step name you have. In my setup, for me the step name and that sequence is the same. Like you step 1, step 2, step 3. So I just number the name to get the step sequence. So make sure it works for you the way if you have a different name, the logic may be a little difference. Okay. The eligibility, that output variable is the same again, is the same. Okay. Now I said I'm going to use the same fast formula. How do I differentiate? For example, if I don't get the grade is passed for the grade as well as the sequence, but the step is passed only for the step level. So the step ID is not coming to me. I'll treat it like it is coming from a step level. Okay. You'll see it when we write the fast formula. Now, what are we going to do? The logic, what we are going to do here is a current step for a year to be eligible. Yeah, I can do that. The person should have worked in the current step for a year to be eligible for next step. Yes, we can do that. Person is eligible for only next step in the grade. So person you cannot jump from one steps. I'm in a one step, you cannot jump to step 3, step 4. If you are on a step 1, you will get into step 2 only. Step 3, 4, 5 is ineligible. Okay, the person is already in a ceiling step, the current grade, then the person is eligible for next grade and the first step. So if for example, if I have a step 1, 2, 3, 4, if I am already in a 4, then I can get into the next grade's first step. That is what eligible. I'm eligible for that. I can't go for that I'm in a grade 1, I can't go to grade 3. Even if I'm in a grade 1, then I can get into grade 2, but I can't get into step 3 or 2. I have to be in a step 1. That is what eligible. That's what the logic is. Now, how does my grade and steps look like? I have an analyzed one as a grade name, then 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 is the ceiling step. And that I have analyzed 2 then 1, 2, 3. Yes, like 3 is the ceiling, and analyze 3, analyze 4, analyze 5. In our example, we are going to use analyze 1, analyze 2. We are not worried about analyze 3 and all this stuff. Okay, but it's the same logic. Now, what are the DBA we are going to work with? Grade name, step sequence, per grade step effective start date. That when is that we can use it for validating how long the person is in the step. We can do that. Okay. And per grade history ceiling date. That basically we are trying to find out the ceiling. Okay. This time we are going to use a ceiling, find the ceiling in a little different way. Like, to validate, if you watched my previous tutorials on eligibility on a grade level, we know, we used ceiling in a different way because the ceiling is coming from a grade ID. The grade ID is not supported in the eligibility formula, so we use a child formula. We are going to do the same thing. But the difference between this lesson and the previous lesson is the previous lesson used the payroll value set. This time we are going to use the previous value set. Sorry, payroll value set. We are going to use a different logic. Okay. So whichever is convenient to you, you can work on that. I'm giving you 2 different options. One option on this lesson, one option in the previous lesson. So you can use that whichever fit for you. Then we are also going to use the per assignment step rate, step name, per GSP step rate. This per GSP step rate, step name, step sequence, step ID, all these coming for grade. So this DBA does not work directly in the eligibility formula because grade ID is not supported as a context, but this will work in any of that compensation pass formula because that supports grade ID. Okay. And what else we have? No. I forgot to mention one thing. The grade ladder ID, the ladder name. Okay, ladder and ladder name is the same. Start date also is coming from the parameter. The grade ID, grade name, grade sequence, step ID, step name. The previous case, the grade ID, grade name, grade sequence. Okay, that's for grade level and the step level. This input values coming from that grade that is getting validated. That is not that where the employee is currently in. Okay, that's it. Let's get into writing fast formula. As usual, we are navigating to fast formula from compensation area. We get into the end of that compensation home page. You find a common configuration where you can find fast formula. As we discussed, we are going to create 2 fast formula. One fast formula to find the ceiling ID. Since we are using the DBA that uses the grade ID as a context, we have to use the fast formula that support context. Eligibility fast formula does not support fast formula. So we are dividing into 2. One is a child fast formula that use the context as a grade ID context. So we will call that. Okay. Now we are going to create the child fast formula first. So we can use any fast formula that supports the context, grade ID context. So in this case, we are using compensation person selections. Okay, what we name it? We'll name it GSP person ceiling step. That is what we are going to determine. Whether the person is in the ceiling step. That's what we are going to determine that. I'm pressing C. So compensation, the end compensation person's compensation person selection. You know the date 1/1/2000. Okay. So okay, I don't need this area because already we determined that database items. Okay. Now I'm going to use the database item. I copy and paste, then I'll explain what database item. Here basically we are trying to find out whether the person is in the last ceiling ID. So if last step ID. If a person is in the last step ID of the grade, so he is eligible to move to next grade. So most of the time it is a ceiling step ID. So we'll find if the ceiling step ID is not defined, we'll find that the last step ID too. Okay. In our previous example, we used payroll value set to find the ceiling step ID name to compare. This time we are not going to use that. We are going to use a different way of doing it. We are going to use a different DBAs. We go through the DBA and find out. Okay. So I have to find out where I am in, which step I am in. So this two DBA tell me which step I am in, the name and the sequence. We don't have ID, so we use name and sequence. And this one tells us what is the history, the ceiling step ID of the grade ID, context grade ID. Okay, so we are going to pass that from the parent formula to here, the person current grade ID. So it will give the ceiling step ID. This 3 DBA will tell us all the steps of a grade ID. Okay, any grade ID there as a context. So the person's step grade ID is going to be passed to here as a context. So the person's current grade ID is all the steps. So here we have a name, sequence, step ID. So we have this step ID. So we are going to find that name and sequence of this array. We get that name for the step ID. Then we are going to compare with this step name, the current step name and the sequence. That's the logic we are going to follow it. Okay, now what I do, I'm going to log some information. I'm also going to get the okay, this will log me that I'm getting into the formula. I'll get the grade ID and the effective date. Then I'm going to log the grade ID, effective date, and the current step name and the current step sequence. All this logged. So I'm saving it here. So even if I come out, it will be saved. Okay, now I got that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a some variable so I can find out that get the step ID, ceiling, that step ID, everything into that variable. So probably I need a step ID that is -1 as a default, step name that is space, okay, ceiling CIL step ID, ceiling step ID as a -1. Okay, the ceiling step ID we are going to take it from the DBA. We can't use the DBA as it is because the array. We can use it if you know the index, but it's better to have it in a variable. Okay, and we are also going to create one more variable whether it's a true or false, whether the person is in the ceiling step or in ceiling step. Okay, since we don't support Boolean, so I'm defining it as a false as a n. Okay, when it's succeed, it became a 1. Okay, so this is what it is. Now I'm going to get that the first step ID from here. So I'm going to get the index of the first. Okay, I can get it from directly from there. Like I can say 1, I can get it from there. Like here, I can say 1. It is coming here. In case the step ID doesn't have anything, so we are going to throw the error. Okay, so better I check that it is there or not. Okay, -1. So if INDX not equal to -1, so basically if it is not there, the -1 is going to be there as a default value. So after that, so okay, now I can say 1 because 99.9% of time it is 1, but still I have the index. I don't care about the 1. I can go the right way of working. So I got the ceiling step ID. Okay, I got the ceiling step ID now. Okay, now I am trying to say if ceiling ID is not -1. Okay, so in this case, if we didn't go through this part, so if that's the case, the default is -1. So I'm checking that not equal to -1. So basically, I found something for the ceiling step. Okay. I also have a else part. I'll come later to that. The ceiling step ID is not equal to 1. So I found the ceiling step ID. So now I have to find the name for the ceiling step ID. Okay. How do I find it? So now I have to get information from here. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is the same logic I'm going to use it. Say that same thing. So what I can do here is I can copy here. I just change the DBA, so the logic is the same. So I'm going to find the DBA name. So I'm going to get the first index of that, the second one, where I'm going to get the name and the sequence number. Okay. So if indx okay, I don't have to say equal to, I can put directly here while exist indx okay, loop. Okay, why I am not validating index if index is not equal to 1? You don't have to, because if it is -1, the exist is going to be false. So even it is not going to come to the loop, it is going to come out. So you don't have to do that. If you want to do that, that's fine. Okay. Now normally, as soon as you put a loop, better you create the next part. You try to find out the next index. If you forget doing that part, then okay, if you have too much of logic, you are concentrating on the logic, there's a possibility you may forget this part. If you do that, then probably it will end up with infinity loop. Okay, so then you have to like find some way, you have to kill the whole process. Make sure you don't get into that. Okay, so now I know that it is going to that coming to next one till the last row. It is going to loop into that. Once it's getting to the last row, then the next one will be -1 because there's no next part. Once you reach the last, then the last plus 1 is a -1 because there's no next. Then this is going to false, then it's going to come out of it. Okay, that's the logic. It's going to do that. Okay, now I have this part. Now what I do, I'm doing the copy and paste because I'm going to get the ID name, sequence, and everything. So I forgot the sequence here. Step sequence equal to -1. Okay, that's a part I forgot. Okay, just adding it. So I'm going to get the step name, step ID, step everything into a variable. I'm going to get that. So after getting that, I'm also going to log the information. So I'm just copying and pasting it. So I got the step ID from that array which have the step ID. That is the same one. Step name, I'm going to get it from step name, the index. Index, I'm getting it from here. Then I'm writing that into the log. Okay, so this is the loop. Okay, now I got the step ID. I got the ceiling ID. Okay, now what I'm going to do is the step ID and the ceiling ID is the same. Then you got it. You got what you want. Okay, if it is for some reason is not matching, still you are going to come out with this variable. That is your last, because this array is sorted by sequence. So you are going to end with the last idea of the grade. Okay, now what I do here, if my ceiling step ID is equivalent to, if my ceiling step ID is equal to my step ID, so I found it. I found my ceiling step. So I got the name and everything. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come out of it. Okay, I'm going to exit. Okay, before exiting, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that step name, am I right? I'm going to say that I found a ceiling step. So found ceiling. Found ceiling. Okay, step name. You found the step name. So you can put a step ID also. Step name is better because you know what step it is. Okay, now we found our sealing step. Okay, where it is stored? Stored in a step ID, step name, step sequence. This is where we store the sealing one. Okay, now what we do? Okay, now what we do? Now we'll come to the else part. Okay, now I found it. Okay, in case else part is coming into the picture. What is else of it? The sealing step ID is not there. So what would be the case? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get directly, I'm going to get the last. Instead of first one, I'm going to get the last one. As I said, it was sorted, so I'm going to get the last one. Okay, and if intx not equal to -1, then well, I'm going to get my step ID, step name, step sequence here. Okay, I'm going to get the last one. Okay, you don't need that. I'm just telling that what are the possibilities. Like, you know, this is enough for the right logic. You don't need that. It is kind of a defensive way of coding it, or I'm just trying to explain what are the possibilities are there. You can choose what you want to do that. You decide what is best for your need. Now, either way, I got that the step ID and the step sequence. So what I'm trying to do here is, if the step ID, okay, now I found the last step ID. I can say here, I also say here, I found the last step. So I know that, but I'm finding it. So just to differentiate that, I'm telling here last. Okay, so I found that now. Okay, now okay, in this else I'm coming out of it. Now I'm validating it. How do I validate? If that, okay, just for the way I'm telling step ID is not equal to null. Step, okay, I have to, okay, step ID is not equal to null, not equal to -1, not null. Okay, sorry. Okay, now the step ID is not equal -1, then the step name is there. You can also validate the step name. Step ID is easier because it's numeric. Then I have to say that whether my step name, you can either validate a sequence or this one. That is up to you. So I will go with the name. Okay, I can say if the person's current step name equal to the last step name, then basically he is eligible for next one. So I'm telling he's in sealing step. Right. So I can also say that yes, in sealing. So I'm also giving a log says yes, the person is in a sealing step. Okay, I got that. Now what do? I am leaving. So I say here I am leaving. What I am leaving with what? Return in sealing step. Okay, so this is my formula. So basically I'm leaving it. So it says if I'm in a last one or the sealing step, so I'm returning the variable in sealing step with y, otherwise it is no. Okay, I'm saving it, submitting it, I'm compiling it. 28 empty string not allowed. 28. Okay, look like it's compiled. Okay, going back, so refreshing to make sure. Okay, what happened? Sorry, what happened? Sorry, let me search it again. Okay, it is compiled. That's what we are looking for here. Okay, now we are going to create the eligibility first formula. Okay, now that will be created in the benefit eligibility side. So I say that is select GSP, sorry, say GSP percentage. That is what I'm going to call that. Okay, the type is participation rate. Okay, I go for P. I just say P. Participation eligibility. What's the name? Participation rate and eligibility. Participation and rate eligibility. That's what the name is. This 2000. Continue. Okay, I have the name. Name is name. So okay, I got just paste the remaining point in writing it here. Okay, says participant range formula, that whatever reason we talked about earlier, that is what the region is, that validation is. Okay, now what we are going to do here, let me get the DB. I'll explain you one by one what are we going to do here. What are we going to do here? We are going to basically write all this. We are going to date the value. The person should be in a step for a year. So that we are going to get it from the grade step effective start date. Okay. You can also use a different way of doing it. There's something called seniority that I covered in my blog, but I will do it later sometime. So you can do that. Okay, the seniority date you can use it, but this is good enough. What you are going to do, the start date of the grade step, person grade step. So I don't think anytime it is going to be date tracked. I don't see a reason. So you can take it, okay, and you can log it, log the information. You can check it out. That is good enough according to my opinion, but it is up to you. Okay, okay. Then we have the assignment grade ID that we are going to pass it to the child ID, and the assignment grade name is there. The step name, step sequence is there. Okay, okay, we got that. Now what do? I'm going to say I'm entering into the formula, leaving the formula, then I have a variable. You know that here the return variable name is eligible. If you write anything else, it may not work the way you expected. So make sure you are putting exactly like in a caps, uppercase. So I got my basic formula ready. I'm saving it. So I'm also going to get the assignment ID and the context effective date. I got the effective date. Okay, got the effective date and this one. You can write every logic in that, like, you can comment it. I'm not putting it because typing is going to take longer time, so I'm not putting that. But whenever you are writing it, make sure you are having your, like, the logic. Put a comment on that. Okay. Now, okay, I got that. Sorry, I was missing something here. I got only the grade ID, grade step, everything. What about my input variables? Okay, the part I missed is I'm putting input variable I'm missing here. Okay, now input variable I'm having it. What are the input variables? I'm going to have a ladder ID, ladder name, a started intake. I'm not going to use it. Okay, I'm just leaving it as it is, though I'm not using it. Grade ID, grade name, grade sequence, and step ID, step name. Step sequence is not working, so I'm not using it. Step name. Okay, and so now there's a possibility this formula is going to be used for grade and step. Okay, the same formula I'm going to use it. So if when there is no step ID, this is going to be empty. Okay, if I'm using it, then it's going to throw the error. Now, how do I overcome that issue? So when the input values are not passed, and if you are using it, it is going to throw the error. Okay, how do I do that? How I do that is I set a default for that that input value that may not have a value. If that is the case, so when I'm using it, it is not going to throw there. I get the default value. So you can also validate whether the step ID was not defaulted. You can check -1 or was not defaulted. You can use it. That is how I, like, make sure it is not erroring. Okay. So I have my step ID, step name is there. Grade ID, grade name is there. So this is my basic structure. Okay. The one more thing, the grade ID, step name, step. This is not what I'm currently in. This is what I'm validating it. Okay. So every time, like, that, like, basically, if you are in a 5-step, assume you have 5-step in a grade. I think I already explained. I am repeating it. So it is going to come, like, if you are already in the first step, so the first step won't come here because we don't validate which you are already in. So the second one will be validated. If the second one is going through fine, like, is eligible, then that the third one will be validated. If it is eligible, that is stopped. So the logic is once it became eligible, and after that when it became ineligible, it stops. It won't go further. So you make sure whichever you want to make it eligible, you make it eligible, then, like, make it ineligible. If you are trying to make everything eligible, then, like, every formula, the formula goes through every step, every grade, the formula is going to be called for that. That is very expensive. So if you want to, like, whatever your logic is, like, if a person is in a first step, make it second one eligible or a third one eligible, then make it everybody else is ineligible. If you are trying to be very generous of making everyone, every, like, grade, every step is eligible for the person, then that the system won't be that generous to you because it has got its own cost. Okay, that is enough for the lecture. So I'll go for the validation now. So I got my framework ready now. Now I do the validation. My first validation says if a person is in the current step more than a year. So basically that is the difference between this one, the start date, and the effective date. Okay, that's E date. So if I say that more than a year validation, okay, more than a year validation. So if I say that if, okay, how do I do that? There is a function called days between. Okay, days between, the days between sys date, that is, what is that, E date, date, comma, effective start date. Okay. Okay, effective start date is greater than 365. Okay, so that is the logic. Okay, there is a many way you can do that. I can say like if I can do here. I'm sorry, not if. So it's not a clear sequel. Okay, I can say here, or you can say that like less than like greater than you put all the logic here. That is one way of doing here. You got what I'm trying to say, like or if it is like we can return something from here, like return eligible, you can make eligible false, you can return that from here. There are many ways you can do that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to make that, okay, I put it this way because less than 365, or you can put less than equal to eligible is false. Okay, eligible is no. Okay, and that, so I'm also going to say that in eligibility to year validate anything you can put, like put anything you want to here. You can also say return in, you can return here, that is also fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But generally I don't do a multiple return within the formula, but there's nothing wrong with that, but that is my way of working. So what I do here is if eligible is true, this is how I work, but you can have your own way of working here. Okay. Okay. If eligible yes, then I'm going to say that okay, I can have one more validation. Okay, I can have a like I can have a if, then there's one more if, or I can have a two if here. So I'm going to say that this was to and was faltered. So that means else. So I'm telling here this is in grade validation. In grade validation. So in the else part, because when this is defaulted, it's a grade validation. Okay. Now there's a one problem here. If the eligibility is no, then still it is going to come here. So that is not right. Okay. That is not right. Absolutely. So I say here if. Okay. Then if. Okay. Else. Yes. Okay. That's it. If eligible, then what I'm going to come here. So what are we going to do? If count step is there, it is if, then the else is coming to the picture. Okay. What am I to that? Okay. Okay. So if I'm here, so then I'm going to here say that here I'm in a step validation, in a grade validation, in a step validation. I'm just saving it. You save it quite often so you don't miss anything by mistake. Sometimes what happens, I press the back by mistake, I do that. That will like get me out of the system. Okay. Now I say I'm in a grade validation. Okay. Now I have to make sure, okay, I'm in a grade, but I have to also make sure the grade ID also passed in. So what I do here is, I'm saying here, if was not defaulted, so it means it's not -1. That's what it is indirectly, I'm telling that. no, sorry, comp per assignment ID. Sorry, what I'm doing is wrong. Per assignment ID is not defaulted. Per assignment grade ID is not defaulted. So now we are going to call a fast formula. Okay. So ID was not defaulted, but assignment grade was not defaulted. So basically the per assignment grade is there in the DBA. So now what we are going to do here is, if, okay, the formula exists. Okay, if is executable, then if executable, what is executable is executable formula. Let me copy the formula name. That is a child formula. Okay, if executable, if executable, I am setting the context. So how do I set the context? Set input. I already set that, whether you are setting input or you are setting the context is the same. Context and the input is almost same. Okay, except few things, it is almost same. Okay, now I'm setting that. Well, assignment grade ID, I'm setting it. I set the context. Okay, now I'm executing it. The context is set. Sorry. Execute. Okay, execute what? Okay, here you got the execute here. Here you got the execute. Okay, once you got the executed, then you are calling CEILING, your get output. What is the variable name? What was that returned last time? In seal step. Okay, in seal step. What is the default? No. So basically the person is not in the sealing step, is a default. So now I can log that. Okay, so I can log that, say in sealing. So L data set stop. I can say that in sealing. Okay, in sealing. So it will tell me whether the person is in sealing or not. Okay, so basically the formulas, the child formulas validated. We set the grade ID, execute that, we got the output, and we log the output. Okay. Now what happened? Now what we see here is, actually this you can do it later also. If a person is already in the, if the person is, okay, the thing is what happened, you are checking that only when a person is moving from one grade to other grade. If the person is already in the same grade, you don't have to do that, but that is fine. You can change the logic wherever you want to have it. The better way of doing here is first you do the validation where the person is in the same grade. I mean, the person in the same grade and that the validated grade, the eligibility validated grade also same grade. You don't have to do that because he is trying to move from one step to other step. Only when it's differ, only you have to find out whether the current person is in a ceiling step. Otherwise, you can make it ineligible. Okay. Anyway, we done that. That is fine. Okay. Now, what I do here is grade. Okay, this is, I'm just writing it. Just validate the current grade or not. Step R. Okay, if I am in a grade name, if my grade, I can validate the grade ID. For assignment grade ID is assignment grade ID is equal to, okay, the person, sorry, is not equal to, person is not equal to, if a person is not equal to the IV grade ID. So person is only moving the grade. If the person is in the same grade, then the validation goes into the step level. Okay. So that is the only thing we are doing here. Okay. If a person is grade ID, then we say that if a person is in ceiling step. Okay. 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 In ceiling, I'm putting it here. So it available within that condition. In ceiling, no. So if in ceiling is equal to y, then okay, then the person is already in a ceiling, then you make sure, okay, else, okay, now there's a small logic, we have to do that. Now what we assume here, when you are coming here, we make these, so we are going to make it like eligible or not, we are going to validate the person is, rather than making it ineligible. So what we do here is, as soon as I'm coming here, I make that as a ineligible. Okay, if the person is in a ceiling, the person is not in a ceiling, sorry, I do it within that, I'll do it here. Okay, I'll make that person ineligible, then make sure the person is eligible. I just put a logic other way. You can write a logic other way around too, but it's easier to explain. Okay, I'm making him ineligible, no. Now, if a person is not in a ceiling, so then this changing it, that will be no. So I don't have to worry about that. That will be no only. If the person is in a ceiling, and if that, if okay, what we do? Okay, if then basically I'm moving from analyzed 1 to analyzed 2. I'm making the guy eligible 1. Okay. Okay. And I am also saying that I'm making eligible yes. Okay. I'm making eligible yes. I'm also saying that he is moving from 1 to 2. Okay. Else you can have like any number of grade, you can have it like that, or you can have a, you can, like whichever logic is right for you can do that. I can say 2 to 3. Just I'm stopping it here. I'm not going further. 2 to 3. Basically, if a person moving from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, and if a person, basically what I'm trying to say here is, if a person is already in a ceiling and he is trying to move from 1 to the next grade, he is eligible, otherwise he is ineligible. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay, so our part, otherwise he is ineligible is no. If it is else part, I don't have to say else is false, because that is what I defaulted to. Okay, so he became a ineligible, that is what. Okay, then the assignment ID is not equal to grade ID if it is only defaulted. Am I right? If it is grade step ID was defaulted, that is fine. Okay, sorry, it has to come within the condition. Otherwise, okay. The reason is we also writing the same formula for steps. So I have to be careful what when step is coming to the picture. Okay. If its grade ID is not equal to same, if the grade ID is the same as current grade ID and that eligible grade ID is the same, so basically then we are moving into step level. We are not validating everything. We make the person eligible is true. Then it come for after that come for a step. So that is the time we do the validation. That's the reason we don't do anything. Only we are doing the validation when the grade IDs are not the same. Okay, now we'll come to the step level. What happened? Okay, the step level we are trying to say here, if a person is in the same step, that is what we try to say here. Okay, what is the condition we say here? The person is already in the ceiling step ID, current grade, then the person is eligible for the next grade, the first step. Okay, the person should have worked in the current step, that is also in. Eligible for only the next step. So if the person is in the current step, so we have to find out what is that, this one. Okay, now what we have, the sequence we have, am I right? No, but we don't have a step sequence. But the thing is, in our case, we are using the number, the step. Either you can use the step like you can name a name A to like A to B, B to C. That way you can validate. In my case, the name and the sequence is same. So I can use the grade step sequence and the step name I can use it. Okay, how do I use that? I'll tell you. Okay, so basically I need a step sequence. Okay, I say if sequence, okay, the first step sequence, the person step sequence, sorry, person step sequence, I put this way, that would be easier. Yeah, the person step sequence plus 1 equivalent to, okay, step name. Here I want to make sure before that current step ID is not defaulted or not equal to -1. That I want to make sure. Okay, if not equal to -1, then okay. So I'm making sure it is passed. Okay, because earlier we said step ID was defaulted, was not defaulted. So it is defaulted, that is right, but still that I'm doing one more validation to make sure that I'm using the steps ID. Okay, so to number, step name, then okay. Here also I make the same logic like when you are coming in, I'm making it ineligible, then I'm making it eligible. Okay. Okay. I'm making it ineligible. Okay. Say I say here what's the log we are using it. Here also you say that if the kind of step ID is coming here, this won't be there because already we validated that, so I'm not worried about that part. Okay. Okay, this should be fine. Okay, I think this should be fine. Okay, validate the eligible. So basically I'm taking that the sequence, validating the step name because I don't have the step sequence as the input value. They should pass it. For some reason it's not working. I think we should talk to them too. pass the step that the sequence to. Okay, that makes the life easier. So now this is done, this is done. Okay, I'm saving it. I'm submitting it, compiling. It is not compiled. 86 is what? 84, 85, 6. Syntax error character position on line number 86. What? It is compiled fine. Now what we do, we have GSP percentage. That we'll put that into that. We create a eligibility or whatever the eligibility we have. We attach that formula into that. Let's see what I think we already have. I created only eligibility and attach that into the ladder. So I just changed that eligibility profile. Probably starts with GSP, I believe. Okay, it is there. Okay, I go to other. I'll change the formula, whichever is the formula. Already I had different formula. So GSP. Okay, GSP percentage. Okay. Okay, I'm saving that. Okay, save and close. Now I'm coming to create steps. Okay, such that I think this is the one, I believe. I go and I'll show it. Okay, rather than I'm going there, I'll just show it. I'm not editing it because the eligibility is attached here. That's what I'm trying to show you here. Okay, whatever the ladder level, I removed it because that is not applicable here. If you look at here, the grade rules the same thing. Like if I'm expanding here, GSP grade eligibility. Everywhere I'm having the same one. GSP grade eligibility. The second also I'm having, everywhere I'm having here. So I'm not worried about 3 and 4, but you have to attach everywhere the same thing and you have to change your formula accordingly. Okay. So basically we are talking about the analyzed 1 and 2. That's all we are talking about here. Okay. Now let me go and run that. I think last time there were 2 people were eligible for that. The one person was changing the grade and the other person is changing this one. I hope that is the same way today or two. Okay. Grade ladder. Grade and step. Okay, we are worried about formula. Okay, if you are running it, that's for other reason you need that. But anyway, the formulas are going to be written over there, so I'm not worried. I don't need anything else. Cement status active. Okay, I'm just submitting it. Okay, I open with a different one. I can show that. Okay, the person is basically entering into the eligibility. So the first thing is in a grade validation. Okay, the person is in a grade validation, then he is entering into the child formula. Okay, what is the grade ID? This is the grade ID. Okay, now what is the effective date? The effective date is like 2021. That's the effective date. The current step name and the current step name. Then basically the step sequence one, name one, and we are trying to find out that that ceiling step. Okay, step name, step name, step 4, step 4. So basically this is the ceiling step is the 4. That's what we found it. Okay. Now leaving the ceiling step. Okay, that is in ceiling is n because the current step is 1. The current person step is 1, the ceiling is 4, so the person is not in. So what is coming out is n. I should have put that here also, but I didn't do that. That's fine. The in ceiling is no. That's what it says. So whatever coming out is no. Okay, that is right. Okay. Now, so basically, like I should have put here the yes or no, so I don't know that when you're leaving that what is returning it. Now I know only from the receiving part, I know that not the sending side. I should have put a little more logs. Okay, that's fine. Now I'm leaving that. So basically, it is leaving us y. The grade is y because the person is in a moving from a person is moving from one step to other. He's not moving from one ceiling to other ceiling. I mean one grade to other grade. He's moving within the grade. So it is yes. Now he is coming here. Now the in step validation. Now the step validation is coming. Next step allowed is 2. So the leaving because he is moving to the second step. That is what he's moving here. Okay, that is all he's moving here. So basically that is true. Why? Okay. Now okay, now it is going to come here. Now it is going to like leaving eligibilities, leaving ineligible persons, because when it's coming to the next step, it is going to say no. Okay, so basically what is happening is that whatever we are expected is working fine. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, that's it for the timing. By this we are ending our eligibility tutorial, and next time we'll look into that either date or the value calculation. Okay, thank you. Bye.